I pulled into a New Holland dealership in northern Iowa last month, expecting a quiet lot, and instead I counted more green trade-ins parked out back than blue machines on the front line. Every one of those green tractors was a John Deere that somebody had traded away to buy blue. Now, one lot in one town does not make a trend, but it lines up with a number that should stop you cold. In this country, John Deere sells about half of all the big tractors. Half. The company that owns New Holland sells about a fifth. That gap sat frozen for 30 years, and everybody assumed it always would. Then, this past summer, the parent company behind New Holland tore up the way it sells tractors across all of North America, and it did it for one reason: to take customers away from John Deere and never give them back. It did not do it with a better ad. It did it by reorganizing every dealer, every parts counter, and every service department it runs on this continent. For decades, this company fought itself. Now it has stopped fighting itself and pointed the whole machine at Deere. We are going to walk through what changed, why a shrinking market makes it more dangerous and not less, and the one uncomfortable fact about New Holland that I am not going to let you switch without hearing. Here is the number that frames all of it. That 1/2 against 1/5 gap looked permanent for a simple reason. Deere had something New Holland never had. Deere had focus. New Holland spent decades competing against its own sister brand, the red Case tractors. Two dealers in the same county owned by the same parent, fighting each other for the same farmer instead of fighting Deere. That was the gift Deere never had to earn. Its biggest rival was busy tripping over its own feet. This summer, that gift ended. The parent company looked at a 1/5 market share against Deere's 1/2 and decided the problem was not the product. The problem was that it had never once pointed all of its dealers in the same direction. Let me say one thing, and then I will not bring it up again. I spent 11 years behind a dealer parts counter before I went back to farming full-time, and I put everything I learned about how to switch brands without getting buried at the trade-in desk into a manual called the Equipment Freedom Manual. It is at getacheron.com, and the link is in the description and the pinned comment. If you want it, it is there. That is all. So, what actually happened? For most of the last 30 years, the company called CNH Industrial has owned two farm equipment brands that competed head-to-head: New Holland, the blue tractors, and Case, the red ones. Same parent, same corporate headquarters, and in county after county, a blue dealer and a red dealer sitting a few miles apart, chasing the same farmers, splitting the same customers, cannibalizing each other's sales. It was one of the strangest arrangements in American equipment, and it went on for decades because nobody at the top wanted to be the one to merge two proud dealer networks. And this is not a small company we are talking about. The parent behind New Holland runs in more than 170 countries and pulls in around $19 billion a year. It has always had the size to challenge Deere. What it never had was the will to stop dividing that size in half. And it is worth knowing how New Holland even got to that 1/5. The blue brand you see today is really 3 old companies stacked on top of each other. New Holland started as a hay tool company more than a century ago. Then Ford's tractor business got folded in, which is why so many older operators feel a tie to that blue paint. They grew up on Ford tractors. Then New Holland and Case were pulled under one owner. 3 proud names, 3 loyal customer bases, all put under one roof, and then, for 30 years, allowed to keep competing against each other as if the merger never happened. The size was always there. It was just cut in half by a company that could not decide whether it was one business or two. This summer, following a shakeup in the executive ranks, the parent finally did it. It announced that it is folding Case and New Holland into a single North American organization, one sales structure, one marketing arm, one dealer development plan, one parts and service backbone. Red dealers and blue dealers who spent 30 years competing are now supposed to operate as one force. And the company was blunt about why. In its own words, instead of red and blue dealers fighting each other for the same customer, it wants that network aimed at winning market share from the competition. There is only one competitor that matters at that scale. The company did not have to say the name John Deere out loud. Everyone in the room knew who the target was. Now, why does this matter to you, the farmer? Because a dealer network is not just a place to buy a tractor. It is the entire reason a brand switch either works or fails. The number one thing that keeps a farmer loyal to green paint is not the machine. It is the dealer 40 minutes away who has the part in stock and the technician who knows his operation. Deere's real moat was never just the tractor. It was the density and the muscle of its dealer network. And for the first time, the company that owns New Holland is rebuilding its own network specifically to match that muscle. It is copying the one thing that made Deere hard to leave. If it works, a farmer thinking about switching from green to blue no longer has to worry that he is trading down to a weaker dealer. That worry was the last thing holding a lot of operators in place. Here is what that looks like in a single county. Say your area had a New Holland store on one side of town and a Case store on the other, both owned by the same parent, both carrying half an inventory, both running a thin parts department because neither could justify a full one while splitting the same customers. Under the new structure, those two become one operation with a deeper parts shelf, more technicians under one roof, and a service department big enough to actually stand up to the green dealer down the road. For a farmer, a deeper parts shelf and a shorter wait is the whole ballgame. That is exactly the gap that used to make leaving Deere feel like a step down, and it is the gap this reorganization is built to close. If your New Holland or Case dealer is about to change hands under this reorganization, you are going to want to see it coming. Subscribe so more operators see how this works before their dealer changes hands. This is what makes the move more dangerous than it would have been 5 years ago, not less. The farm equipment market right now is shrinking. Farmers are not buying. Crop prices are soft. Interest on a new machine is brutal, and a new tractor that cost a fortune 3 years ago costs more now. New tractor sales across North America have fallen hard, down anywhere from 1/10 to 1/3 depending on the region and the quarter. The company that owns New Holland felt it directly. In one recent stretch, its own sales dropped about 1/5. So this is not a story about New Holland riding a wave. Both of these companies are selling fewer machines than they were 2 years ago. And that is exactly why the reorganization is a threat. When the whole market is growing, a brand can gain customers just by showing up. Nobody has to lose for you to win. But when the market is shrinking, the only way to grow is to take a customer who already belongs to somebody else. In a contracting market, every New Holland sale to a former Deere owner is a sale ripped directly out of Deere's hands. There is no new ground to plant. There is only the other guy's field. So the company that owns New Holland has picked the hardest possible moment to go on offense, which means it is not chasing growth. It is chasing Deere's customers specifically, because in this market, they are the only customers left to take. To understand how a farmer actually breaks with a brand, let me tell you what I watched from behind that parts counter. Brand loyalty in farming does not die in a showroom. It dies at the service window, one bad harvest at a time. I watched it happen more than once. A farmer whose family had run green paint for 3 generations would come in after a lockout or a repair bill that felt like a betrayal, and you could see something go out of his eyes. He was not angry in a loud way. He was quiet, the way a man gets quiet when a thing he trusted lets him down. And I learned that once a farmer got quiet like that, he was already gone. He would run that green machine another season or two, but in his head he had already left. The next trade he would drive in with a different color. Deere never saw those men leave because they left in silence years before the sale. That silent departure is the exact customer the company that owns New Holland just reorganized its entire continent to catch. It built a bigger net for a fish Deere does not even know is swimming away. Put the pieces together. About half the market is Deere's. About a fifth belongs to the parent behind New Holland. There are roughly 4 million tractors working on American farms, and every one of them eventually comes up for trade. In a shrinking market, the company with the hungriest, most unified dealer network wins the trades. For 30 years, that was Deere by default, because its biggest rival was fighting itself. That default just ended. So if a farmer does make the jump, what is he actually getting? New Holland is not some newcomer. It absorbed Ford's tractor business decades ago, so a lot of the blue iron on farms today carries a lineage that older operators grew up running, and it carries real row crop iron now. The big Genesis tractors and the CR combines that harvest crews run hard. Ask a custom harvest crew why it runs blue combines, and the answer is rarely about the badge. It is about a machine that keeps moving in a long day and a design an operator can actually work on. That reputation, iron that runs and does not fight you, is the thing Deere's software-locked machines have been quietly bleeding for years. Its parent is European-controlled, which matters because the European side of this business has always built machines with a different philosophy than the finance-first approach that took over Moline. And a viewer of this channel put the whole switching decision into one sentence better than any dealer ever could. If you want software, buy Deere. If you want iron that works, buy the other guy. That line has more than 50 thumbs up on it because it is exactly how a lot of operators now see the choice. This is the same pattern we have watched play out in other American industries over and over. Look at Harley-Davidson. For years it ran on pure brand loyalty, the flag on the tank, the sound, the identity, and it let the actual machine and the actual customer relationship slide, and a generation of riders drifted to bikes that simply ran better for the money. Look at Boeing, a company that traded its engineering soul for a spreadsheet and spent the goodwill its own engineers had built over 50 years. The pattern is always the same. A great American company earns decades of loyalty by making the best thing. Then a finance layer decides that loyalty is a resource to be harvested instead of a trust to be kept, and they squeeze it, quarter after quarter, right up until the moment they discover that loyalty was the only thing holding the customer in place. Deere is deep into that cycle right now, and the company that owns New Holland has decided this is the moment to stand at the exit door and hand every departing Deere customer a reason to walk through it. And if you want the purest version of the trap Deere fell into, look at what happened with software companies like Adobe. They took tools people used to buy once and own outright and turned them into a subscription you have to keep paying forever or lose access to your own work. Deere did the same thing to a tractor. It turned a machine you used to buy and own into a machine you effectively rent the right to repair. New Holland's pitch, whether it says so out loud or not, is the oldest pitch there is. Buy the thing and actually own it. In a market this angry at being told it does not own what it paid for, that pitch sells itself. What does a farmer do with all of this? If you are happy with your green machines and your Deere dealer treats you right, none of this forces your hand. A brand switch is expensive, and it is not a decision to make out of spite. But if you have been quietly gone for a season or two, if you have already left in your head, understand that you now have a real second option that is getting stronger, not weaker. The dealer network gap that used to make switching feel like a downgrade is closing. The company on the other side is building muscle, specifically so that the switch does not cost you the support you rely on. For the first time in a long time, a farmer who wants out of green does not have to choose between staying miserable and gambling on a weaker dealer. That is new. And that is precisely why Deere should be worried, not about a better tractor, but about a rival that finally decided to fight like it means it. That is the case for New Holland. Now here is the part I promised you in the hook, the uncomfortable fact I am not going to let you switch without hearing, because my own title on this video is stronger than the whole truth. Start with the fact that undercuts my own headline. New Holland is not the repair hero in this story. Back in the spring of 2023, the company that owns New Holland signed the exact same kind of voluntary right to repair agreement that John Deere signed, a handshake deal with the Farm Bureau, promising to give farmers access to tools and manuals. It sounds good, but here is what was buried in it. In exchange, the Farm Bureau agreed to back off supporting actual right to repair laws. Both companies used those handshake deals to keep real legislation off the books, and we know how that turned out for Deere, because a voluntary promise is exactly the thing the Federal Trade Commission decided was not enough. New Holland's parent made the same promise. It just has not been forced to prove it yet. There is more you should sit with before you trade. This whole move, folding red and blue dealers into one giant network, is itself dealer consolidation. It is the same kind of consolidation this channel has warned about for a year, the same force that made your Deere dealer feel like a corporate number instead of a neighbor. When you switch from green to blue right now, you are not switching from a giant to a mom and pop. You are switching to a different giant that is reorganizing to fight harder for your wallet. That is not a reason to stay with Deere. It is a reason to switch with your eyes open. And a reorganization this big is messy while it happens. When two dealer networks merge, some stores close, some staff leave, and some customers get lost in the shuffle for a year or two. If you switch to blue in the middle of that transition, there is a real chance your new dealer is still sorting out its own parts and service before it can take care of you. The company itself has admitted that if it botches the execution, the confusion will push customers to competitors instead. So the timing cuts both ways. And the title itself. I said New Holland is stealing Deere's customers and Deere cannot win them back. The honest version is quieter. This is an offensive that just launched, not a rout that already happened. Both companies are selling fewer machines. What is here is a rival that finally stopped fighting itself and aimed at Deere, in the worst possible market for Deere to be complacent. So let me take you back to that lot in northern Iowa, the one with more green trade-ins out back than blue machines on the front line. A year ago, that lot would have told me nothing, just a few farmers making a few personal decisions. Today, it tells me something different. Every one of those traded-in green tractors is a farmer who left in silence, the exact departure Deere never sees coming. And now, for the first time, there is a company aimed squarely at catching them, a rival that spent 30 years tripping over its own two brands and finally decided to walk in a straight line. Deere still sells about half the tractors in this country. It is not in trouble tomorrow. But the one advantage it never had to earn, a rival too busy fighting itself to fight back, is gone. The blue tractors and the red tractors are one army now, and that army is pointed at the exit door where Deere's quiet, disappointed customers slip out. A farmer ought to know exactly what he is trading, and exactly who is waiting to catch him when he does. For the first time in a long time, the company in the mirror is looking straight ahead.